You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of truth, a dimension of freedom, a dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Capitalist Corner. This is likely to be an abbreviated episode. I don't think I'm going to go the whole hour today. But Mark, I anticipate being back tomorrow, and we will be back to doing our full, round of things, full episodes. There's something I really feel that I need to address on this episode. We have the topics of economics and whatnot. So yesterday I released a video expressing my disagreement with Dr. Leonard Peikoff on a variety of, on two essays that he wrote in 1997 and 2001, where I disagreed with him. The reason I felt compelled to write to do the video was because of the amount of people who came to me and told me, given my opposition to the war in Iran, well, you have to read this. Well, I read it, and I found faults in it, and I put them out there, and I've asked people, go ahead and fact check me. But I got to tell you, the amount of people who I thought were reasonable, who take this intellectual disagreement about something. And by the way, it's based on a monumental amount of reading and effort that I've come to the conclusions I have. It's not whim, it's not emotion. But to take that as somehow a moral failing on my part, I used the word on Facebook and I'll use it here. It's heartbreaking to me. And it's heartbreaking for me because in prison, you're surrounded by irrational people, people with whom you can't have intellectual or intelligent disagreements, people for whom objectivity means nothing. It's all about their, their subjective whims, their emotions of the moment. And I may have said this here, I've said it elsewhere. I could not wait to get out of prison and to enter into communities online where people were rational in their disagreements, where people would express their differences in a reasonable fashion and subject them to fact checks. I mean, in prison, when I used to argue with Brett McCall, we'd disagree, and we'd get an almanac, we'd get a dictionary, whatever, and that would solve it. And if I'm wrong, oh, damn, okay, I was wrong. It doesn't seem like there's as much of that even out here. And it's bewildering, it's disillusioning, and it's really, to be perfectly honest with you, it hurts. It hurts that I thought there were going to be these beacons of objectivity and intellectual independence, and yet, because I differ with them on whether we should have gone to war with Iran without going to Congress, I'm somehow now persona non grata. Okay. It hurts. It does. It's stressing me out. I'm not doing well, but I will. And here's the thing. I have the tools, I have the capacity to deal with this type of thing psychologically. I know how to do it. More than that, I know I did nothing wrong. And, 24-hour news cycle, things change, things come around. I won't forget the people who've treated me this way. I really won't. You don't get to act like this and then pose as if you're the pinnacles of rationality. I won't allow it. And it's a shame to me. It really is, because all I've wanted was to be able to argue points, to advance the values that I think are important. And what are these values? Reason, egoism, individual rights, freedom, capitalism. These are the things that I want to advance. Limited constitutional government. These are all things that I learned from Ayn Rand. But now, because people differ with me, people who are supposed to be adherents to the philosophy of Ayn Rand, I'm somehow, one person yesterday said I'm a narcissist because I dare disagree with Leonard Peikoff. It's bewildering, and I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm noticing today, even in the chat, there's a lot of people missing. I don't know if they're missing because of this. If so, so be it. Somebody told me that I shouldn't take on these fights because of the potential consequences. Here's the thing. I don't operate from fear at all, right? People's judgments of me, have them. The judgment of me that matters is from me. My spine is steel. I'm steadfast and will not stop advocating for those things that I believe. It will not happen. So think of me what you want. The people that know me, know my character. I neither lie, manipulate, nor steal. I'm always looking for new facts, always looking for honest discussion. Jim Valiant, thank you so much. I love you, my brother. Honestly, more than anything, and I don't want to get too emotional here, but I'm really, really heartbroken. Devastatingly so by this, by the irrationality on the part of people I thought better. Yes, I have been outspoken about U.S. support for Ukraine. Not that I think I like numbers gives $2. Thank you. I am opposed to foreign aid wherever it goes. So yes. Now, that's not to say I think Ukraine is wrong. I think Putin's an absolute butcher, and I think that Ukraine has an absolute right to defend itself. I do not think that the United States should get involved. Now, was I as outspoken? Well, no, because we didn't actually go to war. And also, the other thing is, when I've spoken, I didn't get as much pushback that invited further discussion. I've simply said, well, I disagree. I don't think that we should be giving money, had a brief, argument about it, and then it ends. In this case, the vitriol has been far more. And that's fine. You could, I'm a big boy, but like I said, I know my character, and I'm starting to learn the character of others as well. So that's all I really want to say about that. And, thank you for those of you that are here. I really appreciate it. If it could be a whole lot of people, leave the show, I'll get different followers. I'll find new people. I'm going to succeed. I do not want an audience of an echo chamber. I've never wanted that. I want, the audience I want is somebody who will be passionate and argue without attacking somebody's character. Last night I argued with Jim for, I think, an hour on the phone. This morning, everything's fine. It was fine last night. I don't mind that at all. Criticizing your conclusions isn't your attack on your character. No, of course not, Chandler. Of course it's not. You say any attack on your character is unrelated and not worth the time to respond to. I tend to agree with you, Chandler. My problem is the disillusionment. Had it been people that I expected to be like this, whatever. But when it's people that I thought better of, people that are supposed to be committed to a philosophy of reason and individualism, but then when individuals disagree with them, it becomes a problem. That's my issue. Thank you so much, Jenna Clean, for the $5. James Valiant says personal attack does cross a line. I agree. Akira Felix says he admires me because I'm a fighter. Thank you, Akira. I really, really appreciate it. Ian Gilmore says some people cannot disagree in a peaceful fashion. Yeah, it's just disappointment to me to know how many there are. Subby, of course, is out and wants me to say hi to people as he usually does. Hi, Janira. Hi, Marissa. So if anybody has any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to discuss it. If not, we can move on and discuss some economics. That is entirely up to you as the audience. I'm going to bring Persephone on. Persephone, I sent you. So what sparked today's topic was that, and quite frankly, I was way behind. I got about 3 hours sleep last night. So I woke up, I had to do an interview at 10. Then I have this, then Everyday Ethics. Then I have another interview to do at 4. And plus I have my regular job. So I didn't have the normal time frame to prepare. I didn't want to keep talking about Iran. And there wasn't an abundance of news stories to discuss. So I read an article by a guy who I read while I was in prison, a guy named Donald Boudreau. I've interviewed him on my show, and he's an economist. And he has the article today reflections on 4 decades of teaching Econ 101. And one of the things he said, let me slide over here because I think I sent it to Persephone. He says that he's dismayed by the number of people whom I've met over the years who, upon learning what I do for a living, volunteer to me just how much they disliked the boring or dull or pointless economics course or courses they took in college. Those individuals suffered the misfortune of having had bad economics teachers. I pity them. I got to say, I agree. I've never taken a formal economics class, but I find economics to be anything but boring. I find it to be exciting to learn how to see things, behind the curtain, to understand that everything doesn't happen right up front. I love it. So that is kind of sad to me how many people dislike the topic. But anyway, so I've chosen a couple articles. He mentions these are the things that he discusses in this article. I'm not going to address them all because, like I said, I didn't have time to read every single article on every single subject. But he says those of us alive in modern industrial world are among the material richest human beings who ever lived by far. Absolutely true. Absolutely correct. He says there's no such thing as a free lunch. That's true too. You have to pay for it. In economic matters, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. That's going to depend on what you mean by it, but I tend to agree. I mean, you can't, for instance, have a world of zero pollution in an industrialized economy. So in that sense, you do have a trade-off. I think that there's a problem when people assume that these trade-offs are equal. The benefits of modern industrialization far outweigh the harm of pollution. But there's still a trade-off. There's still a negative aspect to it. It's like when you have a free society, when people can come and go as they please. Of course, there's going to be instances where you are the victim of crime. But you're going to be a victim of crime anyway. That's not even a good example. So, anyways, then he says, prices and wages set on markets are not arbitrary. We are going to discuss this. Market prices and wages reflect underlying economic realities as they also guide buyers, sellers, employers, and workers to better coordinate their plans. That's great. Profits in markets are not extracted from workers or consumers. Profits are the rewards for creativity using resources in a way to better satisfy consumer desires. Trade across political borders differs in no relevant economic respects from trade that occurs within borders. And then he gets into collective or political decision making is done by the same imperfect, self-interested human beings who decide and act in private markets. He's referencing the work done by the Public Choice School of Economics. So the first thing is the power of the way of economic thinking was the first article that he that he links. And there's this woman that says to him, he says, but this evening in my international economic policy class, I enjoyed a moment of escape from my sour spirits. One of my students, a young woman who is majoring in global studies, said aloud during class discussion that one thing she likes about my class is that it teaches us to look beyond the obvious. This is, of course, the seen and the unseen. And this is one of the things that really taught me to not care about what politicians say and not even to care about their intentions, but care about actual results. So, for instance, when I oppose minimum wage, people will say, oh, so you don't care about the poor. Codswallop. The question is, first of all, in my mind, although it's not the economic question, are these policies just? Of course, they're not, as they represent an initiation of force from the government onto companies and also interfere in the contracts that are trying to be entered into by the very poor people. But also the minimum wage laws do not do what the advocates say it's going to do. They do not help the people. It only leads to the unemployment of the very people they claim they're wanting to help. Same thing, people can think, well, if you just increase the money supply, there'll be more money in the economy. This neglects the malinvestment, the rise in prices, and an abundance of other things. Price controls. Well, if we can put a price control on housing, more people will get houses, except all that ends up happening is fewer people want to rent out houses. More people want them, and you just end up with shortages. So yes, the seen and the unseen, looking beyond the immediate, is a great lesson in economics and life, by the way, is to always look beyond people's words, always look beyond their intentions, always look beyond whether the given action or policy sounds good or looks good, reason through it. Try to think of all the ramifications. That's a huge lesson I learned in economics. Mr. Deagle says, I am disappointed by the comments under your video. Most are insults or a version of, I won't even respond, which is stupid because why are you then even writing a comment? I agree. In my view, Mr. Deagle, such people treat objectivism as a religion. It is not a religion. It is not a philosophy to be taken on faith. And by the way, the philosophy of objectivism does not have a stand or a position on the war with Iran. Ayn Rand died in 1982. She couldn't possibly know the context that was going to be here 44 years after her death. To assume we know what her position would be is ridiculous. So there's no objectivist position on this at all. Okay, this guy about Lenin, I don't know. I mean, thank you for the comment, but it doesn't. I don't know how it fits into what we're talking about. So then there's this great article, Prices Are Signals. To understand why prices are signals, we have to understand the nature of evaluation in an economy. Prices reflect the subjective values of people in the economy, the preferences of people in the economy. That's what determines what's going to be supplied, what's going to be demanded. So if a price is rising, you can see that there's a demand for this product, and then entrepreneurs know to go to invest in it. Consumers may decide, okay, that's too expensive, I'm going to go elsewhere. And so the price ultimately then comes down based on less people buying, more people producing, greater supply, increased demand, the price comes down. Prices always send messages. And I really like this formulation. It says a price is a signal wrapped in an incentive. Prices aren't just good or bad numbers. They tell us what's scarce while creating pressure for change. While their prices are information wrapped in an incentive, is that the incentive is if I see that there's a price I can exploit, for instance, as an entrepreneur, I see that the price of a consumer good, say, is rising, but the price of producer's good are not. Now I see an opportunity for profit. So I jump in and I search for my profit. I benefit from it. Consumers ultimately benefit from it. So that's the key. So Persephone, what do you have to say about any of this? I'm sorry, I've just been talking.
It's fine. I'm used to it.
Hold on. Mr. Deagle, the show's not an hour early. We have daylight savings over here. So it's actually right now 12:21 p.m. The show is on time. It's an hour earlier for you, but not for us. Mr. Deagle says it would be great if you had a debate with Yaron about Iran because he has been advocating for this war for a very long time. He's generally knowledgeable about the Middle East. I offered to debate him. He says that he's busy. I understand that. I hope it happens, but you never know. So go ahead, Persephone. What are your thoughts? Do you have any questions for me, or do you have any statements that you want to make about this?
Do I have any statements? I also thought economics was boring a couple of years ago. So I sympathize with the people who went up to this dude and said economics is so dull, because I did think it was kind of dull. As I've learned more, it's become less dull. It's now kind of it's interesting. I don't think it's as interesting to me as it is to you, but I do still find it very interesting. In the one article you sent, I really liked the example that they gave about the distilleries pivoting during COVID from producing spirits to producing hand sanitizer. I thought that was a great example because it sounds like altruism, but it's not. It's profit seeking almost sounds bad. It was a profit-seeking thing, and there's going to be some people that look at that and go, oh, well, that's actually terrible. Why didn't they just do it out of the goodness of their hearts? Well, they still did it, didn't they? They still benefited, like the market still benefited from it. So what does it matter why they chose to do it?
So, there's a few things. So Ian Gilmore says, not sure there is much to debate. Yaron agrees that this is unconstitutional. Yes, but he still generally supports it. At least he did. He thinks that it's still moral. I don't think that if it's unconstitutional, it can be moral. Although I do think the Iranians justify it. I mean, the Iranians deserve what's coming to them. And yes, Iran is not. I do not hold that Iran is the fountainhead of Islamism. So, those might be some points of disagreement. This other article here, Persephone, to me is everything that's wrong with some of the advocates of capitalism. The guy says the social responsibility of business includes profits. Okay. Now, he rightly says that profits are not exploitation, they're a reward, that sort of thing. But I want to find what specifically he said.
I have no idea which one you're talking about.
This is the article. It's the article he talks about pienomics. I will find it. What I'm looking for. Okay, here's what he says. The pie growing mentality stresses that the pie is not fixed. The only way that a company can make profits, at least in a long term, is if it grows the pie by actively creating value for society. I would never frame an argument about creating value for society. You create value that individuals either care to recognize or don't. You're not creating a value for some fiction that you call society. But it gets worse. He says a company may improve working conditions out of a genuine concern for its employees, yet these employees become more motivated and productive. A company may develop a new drug to alleviate a pandemic without considering whether those affected are able to pay for it, yet end up successfully commercializing it. A company may reduce its emissions far beyond the level that would lead to a fine due to its sense of responsibility to the environment, yet benefit because customers, employees, and investors are attracted to a firm with such values. He says all of the above actions are likely to be driven by the desire to create social value. It's difficult to justify them with the traditional net present value approach used to maximize profits. The fact that a company ultimately profits from serving society does not detract from the value it creates by doing so. The idea that he seems to be praising in here is that they owe something to society, or they owe to some people, to other people outside of what those people give to them. It's altruism, even if a modified version. Right? I don't want to say it's altruism specifically, because it's not calling for a sacrifice, because it is pointing at profit, but it's suggesting that the good thing about these markets is that you're benefiting everybody. I would never argue that way. I want to see what Phil here has to say. Thank you for the 20 pounds. That's what that is, right? Pounds?
Yes. Pounds.
He says, Michael, with your debate with Jim Valiant, you were both right about what Iranian theocrats deserve, but the premise of the Constitution and congressional approval is vital, so you were right. P.S. I'm for laissez-faire capitalism. I am too, Phil, and thank you for the I'm right, especially because it comes at the expense of saying that my friend Jim is wrong, and that's very important. And Phil is always right. We know that. I don't know how we know it. Yes, Mr. Deagle, the implication is that profit is only good because it helps society, and that, of course, is something that I take issue with. What say you, Miss Persephone?
People are strange. People have... So if we come back to the other one where he said... What did he say?
I don't know what he said.
I'm trying to think.
You look for that, and I'll take up Kara Felix says that's what happens when you rely on utilitarian arguments. That's why Ayn Rand is so important to capitalism. I agree 100%. And I'm somebody, by the way, who thinks economic arguments are important to making the case for a free society. But I don't think we do that by talking about how businesses, they owe other people, or, the reason to justify them is because they're benefiting people.
So the thing that I was talking about is profits are not extracted from workers or consumers.
He's right about that.
There is this weird, I don't know where it comes from, this weird idea that if you buy from a business, that they're basically stealing from you. It doesn't matter that you're getting whatever it is that you're getting. However, much they're charging you is too much. There's this idea that everything should be free. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what.
Yeah, it's dumb. Nobody owes you their time, their effort, or their intelligence. Nobody owes you their productive ability. But yet, this is something that's out there. I mean, Karl Marx, of course, taught about surplus value, basically that the profiteers, the business owners, the capitalists are taking money that properly belongs to the workers with no thought about how much effort that business owner put into saving, what sacrifice, person to himself, sacrifice not in the sense of altruism, but sacrifice in the sense of giving up current pleasures for future gain. There's none of that. So yeah, it's idiotic. I hate the term price gouging. Whenever it comes up, it irritates the hell out of me, because you do not have a right to that product. Full stop. And if you can't afford it, it might be unfortunate, but find a way. You know what I mean? That person does not owe you their product. And usually when that's used, they're like in emergency situations. So they'll say, There better not be any price gouging for the bags of sand, during a flood, for instance. The problem is if you don't allow the price to rise, you're going to have people just come in and buy it all. And then others aren't going to have it. So then you're going to end up saying, okay, the government's going to ration it out. So it just one step leads to another step to another, and the government grows and grows.
Can I give you one example where the government was directly involved in this horrific nightmare situation that ended up happening?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously this happened in South Africa. So do with that information what you will. So during COVID, they banned the sale of alcohol and they banned the sale of cigarettes. You could not buy alcohol and you could not buy cigarettes. What ended up happening was that there was obviously a black market for cigarettes, and they were importing cigarettes from some of the other African countries that are close to us. Now, the health minister, who was responsible for the banning of cigarettes and keeping them banned for far longer than they should have been, she had direct ties to the company that was importing all of these black market cigarettes. So cigarette prices skyrocketed. I think a box was like, I'm going to speak in rands. I'm not going to try and do currency conversion. Just work out the percentage increase for yourself. So a box of cigarettes was $40. And at the height of this insanity, I think people were paying 850 Rand for a box of cigarettes. Now, that's because the government minister who was directly profiting from the import of these illegal cigarettes had kept them banned. I don't think that they should have been banned at all, right?
Neither does Christopher Smith, by the way.
I mean, look, COVID was awful, but banning cigarettes is stupid. Banning alcohol was stupid. There was a huge black market. I don't think any of the people who wanted to get their hands on wine and cigarettes ever stopped being able to. They just created this really insane black market that was really easy to find, and the government was not the government themselves, but someone in the government directly profited off of this. And that's the one case of like skyrocketing profits during a crisis that I disagree with, because number one, it shouldn't have been banned. Number two, you were profiting off of this. You did this on purpose to line your own pockets.
That's a very good segue, by the way, because we're going to discuss now public choice economics. Public choice economics applies economic principles and tools such as rational choice and utility maximization to analyze political behavior and decision making. It assumes politicians, voters, and bureaucrats act in their own self-interest rather than solely for the public good. Key aspects of public choice theory include self-interested actors. Politicians aim to maximize votes while bureaucrats seek to expand their budgets and influence. That's really what I want to talk about. I wouldn't use the term self-interested because while I think they are trying to act in their own interest, often they are not. But the point is that when you condemn markets because they're motivated by greed, and you think that when you elect these politicians, they don't have the very same motives, you're fooling yourself. The difference, of course, is that the market businesses cannot compel you to deal with them. The government can. So that is a very, very, very important point.
Yeah, and people, all of the really common criticisms about how capitalism has failed, healthcare, housing, all of this, healthcare, all of the failures there, you can trace back to government interference in some way or another. Or every argument that you can make, capitalism has failed because houses are so expensive. Everything you can trace back to government intervention where they shouldn't have been intervening. Yes. That's a blog that you can find on the Capitalist Corner website. It's called
Good.
the capitalism scapegoat. If anybody's
What the
interested
hell?
in it.
I don't understand why this happens. Anyways, I put this up there and then it goes away. I think if I click off the screen, I think it
Yeah,
reverts.
it's possible.
Yeah. So, that's the main thrust of today's discussion. I wanted to discuss economics. We did so. I will stick around for questions if anybody has them. If not, I'm going to wrap up. We will be here at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time today for Everyday Ethics on this very channel. You can catch the aforementioned episode I did concerning Dr. Peikoff's articles on the Rational Egoist. And thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the super stickers. Are there any questions? Okay. Go ahead, Persephone. You got a question, it seems?
I have a question for someone who I don't know if they're still in the audience. Unknown Infinium. I would just like to ask them why they said Persephone as a Matrix fan.
Are you a Matrix fan?
I mean, kind of, not really. I've watched The Matrix. It was okay. I'm just very curious if this person knows me, where this comment came from. That I'm curious.
Well, all right, so you can answer it. Let Michael take a nap. Akira Felix, Michael cannot take a nap. Michael has to finish doing laundry, clean the house, do a report, go to the pharmacy, do the show at 2:30, and then another show at 4.
Ian also wants to know what's your approach going into the Bernstein debate.
Bring facts. I mean, I'm not like somebody said. Well, let Michael take he can't reveal his strategy. Yes, I can. I'm not like my strategy will be to bring to. I'll tell you now. Heroism goes beyond mere doing something of benefit. Heroism also involves character. So I will impede. I mean, otherwise, could we call Stalin a hero because he helped defeat Hitler? I don't think so. I know we can't. Megan, I will answer your question in a second. So I'm going to point out his horrible character. I'm going to point out how he refused to accept the 2020 election. I'm going to point out all of his horrible, horrible policies that are contrary to a free society. I'm going to point out his disregard for the constitutional order, his disregard for the truth, and I'm going to point out his ushering in a lot of Christian nationalists. That'll be the thrust of it. I mean, it'll be more, obviously, whenever I do these things, I don't just say, oh, let's have a conversation. Yesterday, when I did my episode on Dr. Peikoff's articles, I didn't say, oh, look at this. This seems interesting. I think I'll disagree. Well, I said he disregarded the Constitution, Ian. I think that settles it. But I did a monumental amount of research on this. I fact-checked both his articles on 4 separate AIs. I read numerous articles. I went back and forth with AI discussing the issue. I then took the transcript from my essay and put it through 3 different AIs to fact check myself. Right? That's how I found out that I misspoke and I said that the attack on the Iranian jet took place in 98. I knew it happened in 88, but I said 98. But AI corrected me on that, so I was able to put a comment below. So when I come into the debate with Andy on Thursday, I am going to be prepared. Somebody asked a question, Megan Ribbons. Why does
anxiety suck so much?
It's interesting. I just did an episode, Megan, this morning that I'm going to release Thursday on overcoming 4 fears. And anxiety obviously is provoked by fear. And the 4 fears are fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty, and FOMO, fear of missing out. And I learned while reading up for this episode that Fear-based disorders are the single most commonly diagnosed in mental health. I would have thought depression, but I would have been wrong. Anxiety sucks so much because if it didn't suck, it wouldn't be anxiety. That's why. Let me just say that. Let me give you a little something because I sometimes get overwhelmed with anxiety. It comes over my whole body. My thoughts no longer feel like I'm in control of them. They just feel tight and scrambled. And normally I use self-talk to alleviate that, but sometimes the thing to do is just sit back and accept it. Just accept that it's here, let it flow over your body, and it will dissipate. Go ahead, Persephone.
Someone in a conversation said that the human stress response seems quite maladaptive, right? The human anxiety response. And the what they said was that most of the evolutionary stress response we have was created to deal with far more immediate threats than what we deal with now, right? So now, back then it was like, tigers are chasing me. And now it's like, oh, well, I have to pay rent. And they said one really good way to deal with that overwhelming sense of anxiety that you feel is to clench all of your muscles like really hard, because it helps to trigger like the fight or flight response, and it helps to trick your brain into thinking that you've just like fought something, and that sometimes that helps because your anxiety response is because very, very slow tigers are chasing you, and sometimes it helps to clench up all your muscles and pretend that you've been in a fight.
I believe you're talking about the relaxation response.
I don't know. I haven't done any reading on it. I'm vaguely remembering parts of a conversation.
All right, don't go sick. But yes, you can look up the relaxation response, and that's one way to go about things. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. I have to go to the pharmacy, and I've got a bunch to do. We will be back tomorrow. Mark should be here for another lively discussion. And I thank you all again for being here. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Thanks for the super chats and super stickers. Capitalist thought of the day is this. Capitalism is good. Capitalism is moral. I think economics is a vital piece of advocating for capitalism, but I don't think it's enough. I think that we also need to understand the morality of capitalism. We have to understand, one, what morals are, how they relate to the concept of individual rights, and how this relates to politics and freedom. And we need to be able to make these arguments in a very strong fashion. Truth is on our side. Right is on our side. And if we push forward, we can win. I'm not predicting we will. I'm just saying we can. All right, Persephone, ask a question.
How do you deal with anxiety in your own life, audience? That's what I'd like to know. How do you deal with anxiety?
How do you deal with anxiety? All right, go to YouTube and answer it. Also, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And be there today at 2:30 p.m. for Everyday Ethics. Until tomorrow, remember, check your premises. Peace.